Welcome to Bitcoin Technical Analysis on World Crypto Network and Bitcoin.com. Today we're here with Tone. How's it going, Tone?
Great, coming to you from Seoul, South Korea.
Excellent. And George, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show again. Looking forward to today and chatting about Bitcoin as it's trending again.
Excellent. And I'm Theo Goodman, your host. So, George, tell us about Bitcoin. There's been some definite movement in the price the last days, and how's it trending?
Yeah, so I have up the 4-hour chart, and for momentum traders, this is becoming a nice dream because all the momentum indicators are just ripping higher and not really going lower. So, you look at the RSI, you look at the commodity channel index, and then the on balance volume, and you're seeing them all at high levels and staying high. For me, that's good. It means that momentum is just going to start moving higher. When you don't come down from high levels and you just sustain them, the energy is just bundling up and wants to rip. So, you see the price here, it's, getting a couple of standard deviations above the moving average, but it's not coming lower. You had that big move yesterday, and I blogged about where I thought that was coming from, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes as well. But, the price here looks good to me. The level I was looking at for it to hold was like the 407, 400 level, and so far it's been holding that pretty well, and looks like it wants to make a move higher. And then again, I always go back and look at the weekly, and the weekly is just looking fantastic. In fact, you have like the 50 and the 100 about to do a crossover, the 50 and 100 week exponential moving averages. The RSI, again, is just staying in this really, really high level bullish zone and looks like it's about to go into an overbought mode, but it looks like the price is probably going to look to make a higher move soon. So, a couple of things have been, in my opinion, been making this move go, the Bitcoin price go higher. And I've been talking about China for a while. I'm going to continue to talk about China. So I have a blog post from yesterday talking about how the Chinese, there was more monetary policy coming out of China. They're depreciating the renminbi further. And they've let it go from the tight band that was being held at around 640, and it's now around 650. Particularly the offshore yuan. That's the one on top here is at 650, and then the onshore yuan is the onshore yuan. I'm sorry, is the offshore yuan is 642, and the onshore yuan is 650. Sorry about that. So there's a real premium here, and it's widening. To me, that's really bullish for the price of Bitcoin, as we're seeing that these capital controls are having an effect. And another thing to look at is the Shanghai versus Bitcoin, something else I've been talking about for a while. And there's definitely what I think of as a correlation here, that as one goes up, the other goes down. I have arrows pointing where the top one is the price of Bitcoin, and the bottom comparison is Shanghai. And you could see that they're making moves here. When one goes up, the other goes down. So in my opinion, it's speculative money moving in and out of assets that go higher and lower. And Shanghai's been going lower in the last few days, and Bitcoin's been ripping higher. But to me, the real story is this yuan depreciation that we've been talking about for a while, and really that disparity between the offshore and onshore. And as more and more money tries to move offshore versus onshore and vice versa, with the capital controls in place, I think you're just going to see more and more money flowing into Bitcoin. So that's one thing. The next thing I'll talk about is the U.S. dollar. And as I promised last week, I was going to talk about cycles with the U.S. dollar and interest rates, and how they tend to peak ahead. The U.S. dollar tends to peak ahead of or after the first interest rate rise. Well, here's the U.S. dollar, and today it just got smoked again. I'm not really sure of the reason why, but it pierced through through its 50-day moving average and is kind of being supported at the 100-day. But the RSI is weakening and has been for a while. You've been getting a negative divergence there. We mentioned it last week, and it really took hold in the last couple of sessions. Not really sure of why the U.S. dollar went down today, but it could be just people are worried about commodities getting crushed and other things, that maybe the Fed's not going to raise rates, or maybe it's already just priced into the market. Not really sure. But here's a chart that I want to pull up of interest rate cycles and changes in the dollar before and after rate hikes. So you can see here that clearly the dollar does well going into a rate hike, and then it's off in the following months after a rate hike begins. So I don't know if this time will be different or not. You know, we've mentioned it before that the rest of the world is easing, so where are you going to put your money in? But the reality is, you know, you've had these three different instances in the 1994, 99, and 2004, and in each one the dollar has been lower later on. So, you know, we talk about interest rates a lot, so let me go back. I'll talk about that in a second, sorry. I just want to go and talk about the U.S. dollar versus the Japanese yen, and, you know, this is another sign that the dollar could be bottoming. You see a nice bottoming pattern here in that relationship. Yen's starting to move higher as the dollar has been, you know, kind of been going down, and then Euro USD. Something else we talk about a bunch too. Another one that's been going up is the dollar's been falling here. You know, that line there was what I thought would be the resistance level, and it's broken right through it, and it's just been ripping higher in a nice pattern here. So interesting enough, you know, the U.S. dollar has started to weaken, and the other currencies have started to do really well, or at least start to look like they're putting a bottom in. What's interesting, though, is, you know, the commodities index that I look at a lot is still not finding a bottom, despite the dollar going lower. And this is a 20-year chart, and, you know, that level that we talked about a few weeks ago, it broke through the bottom of it. Not surprising, considering how bad the commodity complex has gotten smoked lately. The one thing that's interesting, though, that I'm looking at is RSI possibly is making a double bottom here, and could be moving higher, but there's really no evidence of commodities bottoming yet. However, for me, you know, looking at sentiment and just the whole industry and all the headlines you're starting to see, to me it feels like commodities are priced for the end of the world, and the end of the world is not coming today or tomorrow. And if you read the headlines and you look at the prices of a lot of these things, you know, I would expect to start looking for a bottoming process to start. Of course, that's a process, and it could take a while. But I mean, I just don't see that they could keep going lower like this unless the whole entire market's going to crash. And so far, the way the evidence is that that's not going to happen. So I guess we're in wait and see. But there's no reason to jump into any of these commodities right now. I mean, but I'm just starting to get my contrarian hat on here and start thinking about things like that. So that's all I really have for today.
Okay, Tone.
All right. So I guess that was really good, George. Yeah, I didn't realize the commodity index went even lower, even though I've been bearish commodities for what feels like forever. Okay, so let's kick off with Bitcoin. I have a short-term chart of Bitcoin, and I'm still not buying the bullish move. So this is me and George will be opposite a little bit. So this is my short-term view of Bitcoin. I threw Fibonacci's on there from the high that we reached at 500 a few weeks ago. Like a month and a half ago, and the low that was reached thereafter. So it's a couple of Fibonacci's in there from the low of 300 coming from a high of 500. And we're coming back up on the retrace to the last Fibonacci, the 61.8% Fibonacci line. So I'm watching that really, really carefully. If we can bust above it, it's pretty much open air to 500. And if we reverse right here, we can bounce around between the Fibonacci lines. So we'll bounce around between 375 and 425. And that's what I think it will do. I think it'll slow down. I don't like the fact that the RSI continues to stay overbought. I trade RSI a little bit differently. I like to see RSI go from overbought to oversold. RSI is the very bottom indicator that I have on there. We reached overbought back in mid-October at 275, and then we still haven't cleared that overbought condition. which happens after we go below the 30 mark. So if you go back to June, we hit overbought in the middle of June, and then we relieved the overbought condition back in August when Bitfinex crashed first, and then the rest of the market. That's the Bitcoin XT debacle, in my opinion. So that was a really good release of the overbought RSI. The RSI went over overbought in mid-October, and it still hasn't relieved that overbought condition. So that's what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for that RSI to kind of come back down. All right, so that's my view on Bitcoin. Let's move on to other markets. Let's see here. Let's go with the S&P 500. Okay, so here's the S&P 500, and again, we talked about. So please go back to old videos to talk about big discussions of what happened here, and then eventually we hit a breakout right there. So this was the breakout, and that's also your very critical support. So this is the major support and resistance line. We came down and we hit it once, and like I said, I don't think this is the top. I think there is a lot more upside because a true end of an equity bull market does not give you multiple chances to exit. And that is definitely multiple chances within a few months span. And that's not even the high. That is also way too close to the actual high, I believe was about 21 or 2300, 2130 or 23, I don't really remember. I think it was 2130. So I definitely think there's more upside. How low are we going to go? It's hard to say, especially with the rate announcement coming up. I believe last week we were still at the very top. And last week I was looking for a fall down to 250 and then up from there. So that's what we're looking at. I think we're kind of close to the bottom on the S&P 500. And the moment we cross above 2100, I become extremely bullish. Preferably this happens into next year. So into next year, if we're crossing 2100 in the S&P, I become very, very bullish and looking for 3000 on the S&P over the next, I don't know, 12 to 18 months or something like that. All right, gold, my favorite asset. So this is looking good, actually. We get a little bit of a bounce. We broke this major support resistance line, 2100. Like I said last week, this would have been a very difficult trade to time because it did bounce back and tested the broken support, but it kind of did it with all red candles, which is very, very rare, and this would have been very difficult to time. So now we're working on a much bigger pullback to test broken support. So I would love to see this come back to 1100, put in a nice clean reversal candle, similar to the candle we have now, but at a higher point. And this may be a very good short because my low target for gold still hasn't been reached. I was hoping we would reach it by now, time-wise, and my target was minimum of 900, but as low as 700. So these are my targets for gold, but I was expecting it to happen towards the end of this year, with next year being the rebound year. So it hasn't happened yet. So it's possible that we're not going to break 1,000, but I'm still leaning towards the fact that we will. I would not try to time longs here. I would rather time my short into year end and then watch it fall quickly to 900. Everybody panics, and then I might be the biggest bull on the internet after that. But for now, I'm still bearish. And finally, we have oil. I've been very, very bearish on oil, even though I mistimed some of my trades. This was very, very critical support resistance. So I don't think oil has hit bottom yet. but it's very, very close. So again, with the rise in the dollar, um, I didn't want to short this because we have already come down so far before it cracked the 40, which I've been talking for a while. So what I would love to see is a pullback to 40, and then one more leg down to about 35-ish, and then maybe at 35, oil will finally bottom. That's pretty much all I have. Just these guys.
Excellent. Yeah. Oil, really been selling off hard. It's pretty amazing. All right, and I'm just going to briefly bring up the DAX and compare that with the euro, and we can see some correlation. You can see right here where Draghi surprised the market and the euro went up, and the equities, the DAX index, went down sharply, and that's still going on. So, let's see what happens when we know what the interest rate is going to be like in the US and how the markets react to that. Now, heading over to Bitcoin on the daily, we had a Kumo breakout here, and it's really been moving up. We've also got the 26-day lag, well above the price, all really bullish signals. I think that it's going to consolidate around here or even possibly test the daily cloud or the Cajun Sun if it peeks out of the cloud right here. But this looks pretty good, and if people are buying because the yuan is, being devalued, then that's fine. As far as the RSI is concerned on the daily, I see the 2-day and the 3-day still have space to go up, and I like that, on this whole up move, the RSI has stayed above 50. It has gone back down to kind of test that area, but it stayed above 50. Now, this is a 9 RSI, it's not 14, so it might look a little different, but it's the same idea. So I think that in a upward trending market, then the RSI just tends to stay above 50, or it could even just stay above 70 even for a while and just kind of trend up there in its little channel before it really comes down. Here we can see after the sell-off, even the 9 RSI didn't even get down below 30. It only went to, 35, 40 around there. So, that's what's going on. And yeah, there's some big momentum, but there's still space for the 2 and 3-day RSI. Over in the 4-hour, we can see what's going on intraday a little bit, and that big move from yesterday. And it tested, it went down, tested, bounced. So let's see. But I'm thinking more consolidation into Friday, where there is the future settlements, and then we'll see what direction it goes in. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, World Crypto Network. Also, make sure to check us out on Bitcoin.com. And I'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot for watching.
Well, bye, everyone.
Bye.